Hi guys, today we're going to be putting two primers to the test head to head on either side of my face. I will be doing kind of like the similar style to my foundation reviews, so I'll show you application, I will show you a check-in midway through the day in natural light, and show you how it looks at the end of the day. Both of these primers are from Fenty, and I actually haven't tried either of these. Normally I would do much more extensive kind of testing, I guess, before I got in here and chatted with you about it, but I figured I'm putting to the test anyways, and it is a brand new product and you may be kind of curious even to hear my initial thoughts or see them in action. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I have the Pro Filt'r Instant Retouch Primer, which was the first one that launched with the actual foundation, and that is what's called Soft Matte. And then we have the Pro Filt'r Mattifying Primer in True Matte. So like I said, I'm going to do a kind of a side-by-side comparison. I am going to do more or less a full face of Fenty, all of the products that I could get my hands on as well. So I'll have a tutorial linked down below if you'd like to see everything else that's going on my face, but let's go ahead and get started. So this more recent Pro Filt'r Mattifying Primer just launched. It is available. I just checked the Sephora website. These were both sent for my review, but unfortunately, this is not sponsored by Fenty. Right off the bat, the first thing that I do notice is, first of all, it retails for how much? 36? No, 42 Canadian, probably 36 American. Retails for 42 Canadian. I do like the packaging. It's glass, which isn't necessarily my preference for a primer, but it is really nice packaging. You're getting a pump. From what I can tell, they seem to be exactly the same in packaging, but the biggest difference here, and something that I don't necessarily appreciate, is the fact that the new one has a full fluid ounce in here, which is your average size of a foundation or a primer, but the original has 1.08 fluid ounces for the same price. So you're getting a smidge more in this primer. Not a huge difference, but in my opinion, I would like to see them both have the exact same amount, because if you're not to look for that information, I feel like you would kind of assume that because the packaging looks the same, because they're both Fenty primers, you are getting the same amount. So not amazing, but also not horrible. The Soft Matte Primer, so the original primer, claims to be more of like a retouching primer, so something that's not only going to mattify the skin, but also smooth it, help with pores and texture and the kind of wear of your makeup, while this one focuses more on being matte and even more matte than the original, although on the Sephora website it does say that it is good for normal, dry, combo, and oily skin, so that's kind of going to be up to you. As always, if you do have a Sephora nearby, you can always get a sample as well of both and do a little wear test for yourself and see how you feel about it. I was never much of a primer girl, but YouTube and you specifically have really gotten me into primers. I do have a favorite primers video that I will link to down below if you're looking to get some more of my recommendations, but let's go ahead and actually get this on my face. I'll put the original one over here, the Pro Filt'r Instant Retouch Primer, and the texture of this is really nice. It has like this creamy texture that is a little bit silicone-y, but not a lot, and in my opinion, if you have an oilier skin type, I would recommend not putting too much of any primer down, because you want to work in the lighter layers. That's how my oily skin works. When I end up putting too much product on my face, even if it is mattifying, either it's going to get cakey or a little bit too oily and things will start slipping and sliding around. I also want to say that I feel like a primer can help, but it can't totally be your savior, if that makes sense. Maybe for some people, but I found, and even though my skin isn't as oily as it used to be, no primer totally eliminated my oils for the entirety of the day. It really was kind of a process, and the thing that I found the most helpful was finding a good primer. Moisturize your skin. I have a video on my favorite moisturizers for oily skin. Moisturize, let that absorb into your skin, prime your skin, and right before your primer fully kind of sets into your skin, put a loose powder over this. I've talked about it before, but I find the combination of primer and powder under your liquid foundation makes a huge difference if you have oily skin. It doesn't get super cakey. Use like a damp sponge, not a completely wet sponge, only a little bit of powder, and you can put it in the center, like your T-zone or whatnot. But that to me really makes a big difference. A setting spray as well. It's a real whole process. Some primers will do better than others on their own, but if you're really trying to lock things in place, I feel like there's more steps than just a primer, if that makes sense. So this has a really beautiful texture. It really absorbed into my skin nicely. It has a lotion texture, a little bit thicker than a lotion, I would say. And it seems, I would say, not necessarily mattifying, but kind of more of like a soft matte texture, which I really, really like because it doesn't feel too drying, especially if you're putting a matte foundation over top. You don't want it all to get too cakey, so it feels like really, really balanced. So we'll go ahead and put the True Matte over on this side of my face. And this has more of like a, it's actually a thinner texture, which I really appreciate. Thinner, or it's kind of almost a little bit more gel-like, kind of a gel cream, as opposed to the original primer, which is more of like a gel, more of lotion-y in my opinion. So right off the bat, it does look a little bit shinier, but it does have more of a gel texture, and I think it's gonna kind of mattify down. And it doesn't feel too silicone-y. The second ingredient in both of the primers is dimethicone, but it doesn't, neither of them feel particularly thick and silicone-y, which I hate in primers because those types of primers never did anything for me. And if you have, say, an oily T-zone, keep in mind you can always just put a mattifying primer down the center of your face. You don't need to put the primer all over your face. You can kind of spot treat the areas that get particularly oily. So right off the bat, I've let the primer set into my skin a little bit, and I feel like neither side looks more matte than the other, but I would say they definitely feel different. This side feels a little bit kind of softer, and this side feels like it has a little bit, not necessarily slip, but it definitely just feels different. And when looking on the Sephora website, it says that the new mattifying primer has blue agave in there, which is going to help to mattify the skin, and it is oil free. I don't see claims of the original being oil free, but I was looking at the ingredients when I'm grabbing for the box here. I was looking for the ingredients and I didn't notice any oils in there right off the bat. So it could just be a case of, in the marketing, that they want to stress the fact that the primer is oil free. So let's go ahead and put on foundation. I am going to be using the Fenty Pro Filter. I have a full review on this. I've actually reviewed it twice now because the first time I got it, I got the wrong shade. I bought it the day it launched. I showed up at Sephora at 9 a.m. ready to get it, and I got the wrong shade because it does tend to oxidize a little bit. And this should also be interesting because I'm wearing the shade 310, which has been a good match for me. It was a really good match, but I have a lot of color in my skin right now. And I don't tend to wear more full coverage foundations, and it's also a heat wave today. So I'm not gonna be like piling on a ton of foundation. I do wanna wear it true to how I would wear it. And I personally do enjoy a primer with this foundation because it is quite matte. I feel like it's nice to have something down hydrating. So that's a little more hydrating. So I'm curious to see how this will do with the mattifying primer. And I also really, really would love to see them do a setting spray. I think they do a great setting spray. I'm sure it's probably in the works. It's a pretty yellow foundation, and I'm a little bit more on the golden side, but I will bronze up my face. Let me know what your favorite Fenty products are. They've really done just such an incredible job. It's really cool to see like a celebrity brand, and I even hesitate to call it a celebrity brand because it's so unlike a celebrity brand. It's not just like someone's name slapped on it. It's so well thought through, and it's changed the industry, which I think is really cool. And it's just been really, really, really interesting to see and refreshing. Ooh, that brow though. So in looking after the application of my foundation, first of all, definitely looking very yellow. Some powder, concealer, bronzer will help all of that. But I don't think either side looks particularly different. I like the way that both sides look. This is definitely a really kind of smoothing foundation, but at the same time, I find you can put too much of it on. If you're someone like myself that likes a more medium natural coverage foundation, that's kind of where I'm at in my foundation preference at the moment. But I like the amount that I have on. I like that my skin still looks like it has some life to it and doesn't look completely flat, in the sense that there's a little bit of sheen to my skin, but that's kind of going to be a personal preference on if you enjoy that, because if you do have an oily skin type and you do have a little bit of sheen in the beginning, it's only going to get sheenier throughout the day, so you'll see it in close-up as well. No major differences, but I do, like I said, like the way that both sides look. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on the rest of my makeup and I will be right back. So I'm back with the rest of my makeup on. As I mentioned, I'm wearing as much Fenty as I could get my hands on. I will have everything that I'm wearing linked down below, along with the tutorial for this actual look, everything that you didn't see applied to my face. But overall, I think things look quite similar. Both sides look smooth. They look around the same matteness. I don't see a huge difference. I am wearing like quite a bit of highlighter, but overall I think it looks really good. No huge difference between the two. That doesn't make them, I'm sorry, I have an itchy nose. That doesn't make them like bad or anything, but as of right now, they both seem to be doing kind of a similar job. For me, I feel like this isn't a case of like, I guess it's kind of a case of how different are these primers, or if you're a makeup junkie, or if you're wondering, should you buy the new mattifying one if you already have the original, or if you don't have either, kind of which one should you go for, if that makes sense, because they both seem to be doing a nice job smoothing and mattifying the skin, but right now neither is standing out as doing more of one than the other, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go ahead about my day. I will check back with you in some natural light and we will see how both sides are holding up. Hello, coming to you with a more than midday check, and it's actually been quite a few hours since I had this on. I filmed really early this morning, but I'm surprised to see, or delighted as well, surprised and delighted. This side is actually a little bit oilier than this side, and not that I'm delighted that this face side is oily, but that means that this is doing its job to mattify. Today in Toronto, it's heat warning. It's like somewhere up in the 45 degrees Celsius with humidex, so I don't know that I'm gonna be going outside. Maybe I'll stand on my patio before I film my final check-in, but this side of my face looks good, but it's definitely just shinier than this side is with the mattifying product. So otherwise, things look really good. I don't feel like this looks too oily or anything like that. I'm not gonna blot it just because I wanna see how they really stand up against each other, but I will go ahead and continue to wear this for a few more hours, and then I will check back with you at the end of the evening. Coming to you with my final check-in. Overall, I definitely got some oil production on both sides of my face, which is not surprising. Like I said, it is a really, really hot day, and although I didn't do any like crazy activity, my face on days like this where it's more humid definitely tends to produce more oil, even get a little bit or a lot sweaty depending on, but I have not done any blotting all day. I think you'll see this is the original primer side versus the more mattifying, so soft matte versus true matte. I think although my nose is definitely overall the shiniest part of my face, it's less shiny on this side than it is on this side. At least it looks like that in person, and then I think this half of my face overall looks a little bit shinier than this side. I'm sorry, I'm looking in the viewfinder, but I'm just trying to see kind of what you're seeing, because a lot of the time on camera it can kind of reflect differently, and that's why I did want to do that natural light check-in, because sometimes it's hard to be translated here in terms of my lighting. But overall, I think things look really good. If you do have an oilier skin type, I would recommend the True Matte. If you have a more normal to dry skin type, definitely the Soft Matte. Keep in mind as well, the foundation that I'm wearing is quite a matte foundation too, so of course you're gonna have different results based on different foundations, and I will continue to test both of these primers and report back in future videos. But like I said in the beginning, I did want to try them out head to head and figured we would do it together. So I really like both of them. I don't find that one did a better job than the other in terms of like smoothing or anything like that. I don't have currently major issues with pores or texture, so there's nothing that really kind of differentiated the two. So like I said, it really would just be a matter of skin type and the finish you're looking for. I was really unsure about the mattifying one because when I put it on my skin initially, it did not mattify my skin, I felt like, but it did help keep it more matte throughout the day. So I'm impressed with that. I think it did a good job. Like I said, nothing ever keeps my oils fully away, and I can have more or less oil day to day. This was definitely a little bit of an oilier day as of lately, but I do feel like it did a better job mattifying. So I do feel like there is a difference in the two formulas. If you have the original formula and you feel like maybe it wasn't doing a good enough job, firstly, before you go out and buy the True Matte, I would try powdering that original formula before you go out and spend money. Then you may want to try the newest matte one, but if you haven't picked either of these up yet and you have an oilier skin type, the True Matte may be the one for you. And again, if you have a more normal to dry skin type, the Soft Matte may be the one for you. So let me know if you have tried either of these primers, or if you've tried the original and you plan to try the newest one. I'm glad that I finally got the chance to try, because I know a lot of people really loved the original one. I'll continue to use both, and it'll just depend on the look that I'm going for, the foundation that I'm wearing, the weather that's outside. I have lots and lots of makeup and can always find a use to use different products kind of depending on the day-to-day. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!